The gang begins by showing a young man named Choi Ji-hoon, who is in the principal's room with his older sister, Ji-ae. Ji-hoon is a high school student who often fights and causes trouble at school. His behavior is so outrageous that the principal calls Ji-ae, who acts as his guardian, to come to school. Ji-ae tries to persuade the principal to give her brother one more chance to change his attitude for the better and be more obedient. But the principal can no longer tolerate Ji-hoon's misbehavior, especially when he shows a lack of respect for the principal. As a result, Ji-hoon was immediately expelled from school. That night, Ji-hoon seems to be surfing the internet, looking for a new school, until he finally finds a high school that, according to rumors, has no rules, and most of the students are convicts. Ji-hoon seems happy to find the school and intends to apply for it. The next day, he then visits the high school, which was once a prison building that has been converted into a school. Having just stepped foot on the school grounds, Ji-hoon is already greeted with a ball that hits his head right, taking it as a challenge to start a fight. Confidently, Ji-hoon then asks the bad boys who threw the ball at him to come forward to face him. He prepares to mount a stance to confront them, but the unexpected happens when one of the delinquent students bowing and apologizes to him. Ji-hoon then feels confused why the delinquent students didn't invite him to fight and instead apologized. After that, he rushed to the teacher's room to register to be accepted to attend the school. But again, he is confused because the teachers at the school are not like teachers in general. However, Ji-hoon likes most about this school because there are no specific rules for getting into the school, and the only condition for being admitted there is having the ability to fight. Ji-hoon, who really likes fighting, is immediately accepted to attend school there. Because he doesn't know the location of his new class yet, he then asks a student named Yong-sik, who is alone in the school hallway. Yong-sik then points the way to Ji-hoon's class. Seeing Yong-sik's neat and tidy appearance, Ji-hoon slightly looks down on him. In fact, Yong-sik is one of the strongest students in the school. When he arrives at his class, Ji-hoon confidently asks his strongest classmates because he intends to challenge and beat him. But then, a student named Yong-sik approached him and said that students at this school are forbidden to fight each other carelessly. That's why the delinquent students who deliberately threw the ball at him chose to apologize rather than fight with him. Ji-hoon thinks that the rules are just a fad. Not long after, the recess bell rang and the students rushed out of the classroom. Yong-sik then takes Ji-hoon to the basement of the building, where a one-on-one battle is taking place between the students at the school. Yong-sik says that students are only allowed to fight on the battlefield, which turns out to be a bet by the other students and the teachers. After that, Yong-sik tells Ji-hoon that whoever beats the fighters and comes out as the last winner will become the leader of the students and have the right to determine and make any rules in the school. Seeing Ji-hoon, who seems interested in joining the fight, Yong-sik then tells that the title of the strongest and toughest student is currently held by Daehoon, the student's leader nicknamed the Tiger. However, Daehoon's whereabouts is currently unknown after he had an accident. Even so, Ji-hoon must at least defeat the other three strongest students, whose fighting abilities are not much different from Daehoon, namely Gi-tae, a student who is famous as a skilled wrestler and expert in judo martial arts, and the psychopath King, who is not old enough and obsessed with Sun Gokong. The last one is Yong-sik, who once ran into Ji-hoon in the school corridor. Hearing this, Ji-hoon gets even more excited and goes straight to Yong-sik, who he thinks is just a weak young man judging from his humble appearance. Ji-hoon then challenges Yong-sik to a fight, but Yong-sik refuses for violating school rules. After that, Ji-hoon is ganged up by Yong-sik's men and stripped of his clothes. It turns out that, despite his delinquent looks and annoying attitude, Ji-hoon doesn't seem shy about wearing Hello Kitty underwear. Suddenly he became the butt of the school and earned the nickname Hello Kitty. Even so, he doesn't necessarily feel inferior and becomes himself as he is. The next day, Yong-sik, who sees Ji-hoon's determination to beat the strongest students and become the leader of this school, then tells him that he must win the fight 5 times in a row so he can qualify for the 6th round top 13 and had a chance to fight with the 3 strongest students in the school. Afterwards, Yong-sik takes Ji-hoon to see Yong-sik's fight against the other students. Ji-hoon was impressed when he saw Yong-sik's fighting style that looks calm but has a very fatal attack. But that only makes Ji-hoon even more excited to fight Yong-sik. Without thinking, he immediately enrolled and joined the fighting club. Ji-hoon managed to beat his opponent without any effort in his first fight, so Yong-sik and the people who witnessed the fight looked amazed. After winning several other fights, Ji-hoon begins to be known as a pretty tough fighter, so many people bet on his victory. On the other hand, one of the unscrupulous teachers who often bets in battles suffers a considerable loss because Ji-hoon continues to win. The man then plans something to block Ji-hoon's steps so that he can't win the next fight. Ji-hoon is quite surprised to learn that his match in this round is Gi-tae, one of the 3 strongest students in the school. Ji-hoon should have faced Gi-tae when he had already qualified for the round of 16, but the unscrupulous teacher turned out to have cheated and changed the order of the match. This was deliberately done so that Ji-hoon lost and could no longer participate in the fight. Yong-sik suggests that Ji-hoon just give up because his opponent is Gi-tae, a wrestler and a judo martial artist. But Ji-hoon persists in fighting Gi-tae and is determined to beat him. In the early minutes of the match, Ji-hoon seemed overwhelmed by Gi-tae's attacks, which knocked him down several times. But then, he takes off his shirt and shirtless, making it easier for him to move and difficult for opponents to grip. Unexpectedly, his strategy works quite well as Gi-tae repeatedly struggles to catch him, so he can't bring Ji-hoon down. After putting all his strength into bringing down Gi-tae, Ji-hoon is finally able to overthrow one of the strongest students in the school and wins the battle, despite his severe injuries. Yong-sik and the audience cheer for Ji-hoon's victory while cheering the nickname Hello Kitty for him. Ji-hoon becomes admired by his classmates, although they still nickname him Hello Kitty. Shortly afterwards, the Psychopath King visits Ji-hoon's class and challenges him to a fight in the next match, which Ji-hoon accepts. The Psychopath King turns out to have pretty good physical resistance, so he can still get up every time Ji-hoon knocks him down. When Ji-hoon gets tired and exhausted, the Psychopath King immediately launches an attack. Apparently making the opponent tired and exhausted is a tactic used by the Psychopath King to defeat his opponents. But suddenly the Psychopath King loses his favorite toy, so his attention is distracted, and Ji-hoon takes the opportunity to beat him. Shortly after the fight between Ji-hoon and the Psychopath King was over, it suddenly became very quiet when a young man walked into the battle arena. That young man is Jeon Dae-ho, the champion and the leader of students. Of course, Dae-ho's appearance at school takes the students by surprise since he has been absent for quite a while. Dae-ho, who seems fine, immediately breaks the assumption that they thought he had suffered a fairly severe injury. Yong-sik then goes to Dae-ho and asks him not to interfere in the fight because it's against the rules. However, Dae-ho pays no heed, as his goal this time is to break the rules by killing everyone in the school. Knowing that Dae-ho and Yong-sik will fight to determine who will be the ruler of the school, Ji-hoon and Yong-sik can't wait to see it in person, and so the rest of the school's students. As everyone expected, Dae-ho can easily beat Kwon Yong-sik, one of the strongest students in the school. Ji-hoon is also very surprised to see Dae-ho's physical strength and fighting ability far exceeds Yong-sik's. Because Yong-sik has been defeated, all of his men defected and now joined Dae-ho's henchmen. Not only that, Dae-ho also defeated the Psychopath King and also Gi-tae, so he was again crowned as the champion and ruler of the school. Now that Dae-ho holds the title of being the strongest student, he absolutely decides to abolish the school's fighting club and allow students to fight if they wish. The number of Dae-ho's men also increases over time, including Yong-sik, who decides to join Dae-ho's henchmen. One day, Yong-sik hears that Dae-ho intends to kill Ji-hoon in a fight. Still caring about Ji-hoon, whom he considers his friend, he then tells Ji-hoon about the plan and asks him to leave school before Dae-ho finishes him off. But as it turns out, Dae-ho overheard the conversation between Yong-sik and Ji-hoon, even though the two had gone into hiding before Dae-ho found them. Knowing that Yong-sik has betrayed him, Dae-ho then orders his men to beat him. Ji-hoon, who was told that Dae-ho beat Yong-sik, then rushes to save Yong-sik. Ji-hoon then feels very upset and guilty that Yong-sik was seriously injured because of him. Dae-ho then goes to Ji-hoon and challenges him to a fight against him. Ji-hoon returns home to find his sister sitting pensively lamenting her fate with mixed feelings. Ji-hoon and his sister are alone in this world, without parents and no other family. However, Ji-ae always tries to understand Ji-hoon and wants him to have a good life because he is the only family she has. After engaging in a heart-to-heart conversation with his sister, Ji-hoon begins to strengthen his heart and is determined to defeat Dae-ho to avenge his actions on Yong-sik. Not long after, Ji-hoon returns to school and meets Dae-ho's challenge. But before fighting Dae-ho, he must face his henchmen first. When Ji-hoon begins to feel overwhelmed and exhausted by being beaten by Dae-ho's men, suddenly Yong-sik appears, followed by the Psychopath King and Gi-tae, who came there to help Ji-hoon. As they battle Dae-ho's men, Ji-hoon and Dae-ho end up fighting head-to-head elsewhere, where Dae-ho asks Ji-hoon to fight to the death. Ji-hoon accepts the challenge. They engage in a very fierce fight, with Dae-ho launching a very violent and brutal attack and Ji-hoon trying to fend off his best. Ji-hoon can finally overthrow Dae-ho, even though he is seriously injured. Moments later, Ji-hoon, who has succeeded in overthrowing Jeon Dae-ho, the school's ruler, is finally crowned the champion and the new school's ruler so that he has the right to determine whatever rules he wants. It turns out that Ji-hoon reactivated the fighting club. The film ends by showing Ji-hoon facing off against Yong-sik shortly before their fight, and it's unknown who won the fight. The moral of this film is that violence is not the answer to all problems, and being the strongest doesn't mean being the best. Because actually the best is when we fight for the safety and good of many people, and are not selfish with our own desires.